Welcome to episode 26 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, T Dot. And as always, I'm joined by Theo. So, how are you doing, Theo?
Good. Could be better after the weekend, but otherwise than that, I'm pretty good. Thanks.
Yeah, it was a tough one to take. Yeah, we'll get into it straight away. Disappointing game. You was there, I believe. Did you go? You
Mm,
went to the game, didn't you? So yeah, I
yeah.
think it's a tough one to take. But let's just get into it. We predicted 2-1. We were completely wrong. We gave our team maybe a bit more. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe we were very ambitious. We forgot how good City are. But what was your thoughts on the game in terms of the squad and the lineup and just the first half, really?
It was just very poor overall. Usually, even when I see the lineup, no matter who's in that starting 11, I'm still pretty confident that we'll manage to snatch a result. But from minute one, up to the 90th minute, I thought it was quite probably the poorest I've ever seen Chelsea this season. Maybe the one moment that the game started to maybe look like we could maybe salvage a point from the game was when Loftus-Cheek came on. But otherwise, it was just a poor 90 minutes, I felt. And obviously, losing Reece James to injury early on didn't help. And often this season, we saw it in the first half of the Zenit game, even the first half of the moments throughout that Villa game, and even the first half of the Spurs game. We were poor. We were poor in those first halves. But that's why I kind of thought, maybe there's still a way, that we'll bounce back in the second half. But it wasn't. We let City score early on in that second half, and then it could have easily been more if it wasn't for maybe Christensen, Silva, and Mendy. So I thought, credit to City, I thought they were the better team on the day. There's no doubt about it. So I think you've got to kind of respect your opponent at times and put your hands up and say that they were better than us. But it's just a bit disappointing from Chelsea, especially how we, given our record against Man City under Tuchel. And then again, lineup, I felt maybe Tuchel might have gotten the lineup slightly wrong. I'll praise Tuchel when it's praise to be given, but maybe he got his tactics a bit wrong on Saturday. I know Mount was injured, but I didn't. Maybe it wasn't quite right to play Kante, Jorginho, and Kovacic, the three of them together. I'd have maybe even played a Loftus-Cheek from the start, but maybe he's still kind of trying to get Tuchel's trust. But potentially as Ziyech, I know Pulisic isn't fit, but Havertz is another possibility. But I felt like the three midfielders, it allowed kind of City to boss the midfield. I mean, just play their football, and we were just struggling to win those second balls. It was poor to watch, and I mean, it's the kind of statistic that sums up the game is not a single shot on target registered for Chelsea, which is embarrassing in my opinion. You're the champions of Europe playing at home, and you can't register a single shot on target. But yeah, that kind of just sums up the mood, and it makes me hate 12:30 kickoffs even more on a Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know if I can't remember if I said it on the podcast or if I said it offline to you, but I did say that half 12 kickoffs are the worst thing you can potentially do to me anyway, because it does ruin your week. It's ruined the weekend, albeit I still watch football, but you just don't have that same sort of belief or enthusiasm to watch it. So it was difficult, and I agree with a lot of the points you just made. For me personally, I don't know if necessarily playing the two up front would have been wise looking back on it against City. I think it just didn't work. We were trying to play out from the back. It didn't work in the first half. We still tried to do it in the second half, and I get that Tuchel wants his team to play out from the back. He wants us to to work the ball through the the different channels on the pitch, which is great. But when you've got a team like City who are constantly pressing you from the very moment the game kicks off, and the amount of times Mendy passes it to one of the centre backs, the centre back tries to get it to Jorginho, and then before you know it, City are already, Kevin De Bruyne's on top of someone, Grealish was on top of someone. It was relentless from City, and like I said before, I kind of feel like we were expecting the Champions League final repeat again of City kind of being on the back foot, Tuchel overthinking things as well, and I just look at the two up front. I just don't understand why, when you've got two strikers, one of them being Werner, who is brilliant. We've spoke about it on the last episode how well he is, playing off that last defender, splitting the defense. You've got someone who's strong, powerful, who can hold the ball up in Lukaku as well. Why not just lob the ball straight up to the other end of the pitch and give them a chance? I think there was a chance in the first half where we were on the counter. Lukaku holds the ball up, passes it to Werner, and then we almost, I think, nearly had a shot on target, which, like you mentioned, I think that's the first time since 2003 that we haven't had a shot on target at home. So it just goes to show how embarrassing that is. But I wanted to talk about the two up front. What was your thoughts on that when you got to see it from Tuchel?
I was quite excited at first. I think we mentioned in the previous episode that we want to see Lukaku and Werner play together, and their different skills almost complement each other. But on Saturday, I just felt all the football was played in our half of the pitch, which meant that I was looking at Werner and Lukaku. They were just staying around the centre circle of the pitch and were isolated the whole game. They were getting no support from the midfielders. And the times that we did attempt a long ball, Diaz and Laporte would just deal with it really comfortably, and then we'd struggle to win those second balls. So I felt like it wasn't their day for the two of them at all. We know that on their day they're brilliant, particularly Lukaku, what we've seen at the start of the season. But on the day it didn't really work, and that's why I mentioned Loftus-Cheek coming on, kind of a midfielder that can be a bit more offensive maybe, and who could drive the ball up the pitch. Slowly it started to pick up a bit. But it just maybe goes to show that we rely on Mount a lot when it comes from creativity from midfield. And not having him on Saturday was a big loss for us. But it just wasn't Lukaku and Werner's day on Saturday at all.
Yeah, it was. I agree. You know, I think having the two up front is definitely going to work for us in some games. I just think like you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of Laporte and Diaz just being on top of the two of them, and they did literally play 70, maybe even 80% of that game in central midfield. It did get better when second half kicked off, and we'll talk about the goal. We may as well get that out of the way now as well. It was a very sort of avoidable goal. I think short corner. It was a goal that potentially it was overcrowded in the box as well, which was very, we do like to pack. Well, City do as well. They like to pack the box out and get as many their plays in the box, but was it a goal that could potentially have been avoided? It just felt like a very clumsy goal. Took a deflection, wrong foot to Mendy as well. So is it something that we could have potentially avoided?
It was kind of one, you felt like any other day we'd be getting that block onto it and we would have avoided it. But then I could look at the Grealish chance, the Laporte chance, and think City could have got a goal from those. So I think overall City did deserve a goal. How it came about is a different story. I did watch a quick replay of the goal because I was on the other side of the pitch where I was sitting towards the Matthew Harding, and the goal was scored down the shed. And it was a bit of a scrappy deflection off Jorginho, and it just trickled in, and Mendy was flat-footed. But I think any other day that goal would put in a solid block, or the pace of the ball, maybe Mendy is able to get a hand on it or catch it. But on the day it was just a bit of bad luck. But as I said, the bad luck could have gone against City, and they could have ended up 0-0. How good Silva, Mendy, and the rest of the defense were. But I think City deserved it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and we spoke in a few episodes ago last season when we lost to West Brom, and I recall one of us, maybe both of us, saying this is going to be a big test for Tuchel in terms of how he comes back from a defeat. I think it was his first defeat as Chelsea manager against West Brom, and I feel like this is very similar, but in very different ways as well, because obviously we're playing one of the best teams in Europe. We have to give Man City that credit. They're probably side by side with us in terms of squads. We've probably got just as good a squad as they have. And looking back, it's not really, yes, we lost, but it's not a game that you can really be that disheartened by, that we lost to Man City, who are a brilliant team, and they just outplayed us. But do you think now, looking at the rest of our fixtures for the next, 4 to 6 weeks, comfortably we should be able to bounce back from this defeat?
I would think so. I think you said it perfectly. It's exactly like that West Brom defeat back in April. We lost 5-2 to West Brom, and then we bounced back straight away with, I think, a 2-0 victory up against Porto. And the circumstances are quite similar this time. This time, we've got Juventus on Wednesday, which is a huge test as well. And I do think if we bounce back against Juventus, it will be it will show that it was just a blip. It would not have lasted. But yeah, I think after Juventus, if I do remember, we've got Southampton on Saturday. Then we've got Brentford away after Southampton. So, I saw our next 3 fixtures: Juventus, Southampton at home, Brentford away. I think we should be getting, the 3 points in the Champions League and the 6 points in the Premier League. And we have spoken offline about October being quite an easy month in terms of fixtures. But sometimes those easy fixtures can be the ones that, are the real tests. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, Brentford away is going to be really tasty. I think it's going to be.
Definitely.
I'm just thinking back to Liverpool as well. A game they potentially should have won. I think I did get to see bits of it, but it's a game they potentially. And I've said to a couple of Liverpool fans that I think Brentford will do that to a lot of teams. We've seen what they did to Arsenal, and to come back and do that. But I agree. We should be looking back. I think when we spoke in the last episode, we both said 2-1. I think we were talking from a place of, we know we've got a good record against Man City. We beat them in the Champions League final. We'd just come off a good run of games as well. One thing I did want to kind of pick up on was that, and I know I've said this to you offline, in pretty much the last 3 games I think that we've been involved in, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Zenit, we just didn't, and Spurs as well, we just didn't look right at all in midfield. The first half, we've never looked right. So I do feel like this game against Man City has potentially been on the cards for weeks. We just haven't come up against an opponent as good as Man City, who potentially just outclassed us. But do you think it's just a case that, like you mentioned, maybe not having a Kovacic, Jorginho and Kante in midfield, maybe breaking it up and bringing in, trusting Loftus-Cheek, who, when he came on, breath of fresh air. He looked like a player that just signed for the club and has a point to prove. So is that something that we may now just need to start doing, is actually trusting the players that we've got there? If it's not working, which Tuchel's happy to do, we've seen that, change something, which we need to do.
Yeah, I think change is needed, just because at the same time, it's definitely room for improvement in the squad. We saw it against Man City, that there is room for improvement, and it was a bit of a wake-up call that it's not going to be plain sailing, and we're going to be champions as comfortably as we'd want in May. Because I still think we've got a big chance of winning the league in May, and I will stick with my prediction that we will be champions, but it's not going to be as easy as we thought. And I think there is some kind of, we're getting to that point now, end of the year, where the fixtures do come thick and heavy. So I think maybe I want to see Loftus-Cheek start, especially maybe, I don't know how long Mount is injured for, if he's going to be not available for Wednesday, or if he's not going to be available for Southampton on Saturday. But, you've got midweek fixtures now, and you've got weekend fixtures. You need some kind of rotation without tinkering too much of the squad. And I do think that starting Loftus-Cheek on Saturday, or even in a Champions League, would be the right call, because we saw that, as you said, he was a breath of fresh air when he came on. And he's almost rediscovering that 2019 form. So I think come the end of the season, he will be maybe a starter for every single game of ours. So I do want to be seeing him start for sure.
Yeah, I think he's got to. I think he came on and he played like a player, like I said, like a player that's got something to prove. He wanted, he's playing for the badge, and I know all the players do that, but I suppose when you've been at the team for so long as Ruben Loftus-Cheek has, it does mean a little bit more when he gets a bit of game time. He's got a point to prove. He wants to show the manager that he's actually worth a starting 11 place as well. So I agree with you. Personally, for me, I think he did enough on Saturday to prove to me that he's definitely a starter for the Champions League game. I'm pretty sure Mason Mount, I think, and I might be wrong, but I don't think it's a long injury, so we should hopefully be seeing him back soon. Obviously, wasn't that bad of an injury to take him off against Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup, and I think he even took a penalty. So I think it was an injury that maybe was more impactful after the game. But Reece James is one you mentioned earlier as well. Did look like a pretty bad injury. So what would we do there? Are we going to maybe play Aspie, or do we look at maybe bringing in Hudson-Odoi in that position as well for Wednesday?
Yeah, I think I've read that it was Reece James's ankle, which can be quite bad. So it could be over a month out potentially, if I read from a reliable source. But regarding the right wing back position, I do think Hudson-Odoi's cut out to play there. He's putting in a good shift from time to time. And as I said, with the fixtures coming in midweek and weekend, we might see some rotation. Aspie's now, I think, 32, 33. So you don't want to be playing him every single game. So it's the type of one, maybe you play Aspie on Wednesday, Hudson-Odoi on Saturday and against Southampton. But the two of them, I think, are perfectly able to play there. And we've got, loads of different options at centre-back. So that's not an issue if we want to shift Aspie to the right and have an extra centre-back, in Trevor Chalobah, or maybe even someone like Malang for one game. I'm thinking, the League Cup game that's against Southampton, end of October. So I think we've got lots of options in defence, so I'm not too worried in that area.
Yeah, I think we've spoke about it before. There's a lot of squad depth. We've got a lot of players that can play in different roles, different positions as well. So yeah, I'm not too concerned. I mean, it's a shame for Reece James because he has been one of the best players for us over the course of the last 18 months. So hopefully it's not too long of an injury. But let's switch the attention away from the Premier League and let's talk about Wednesday. I believe it's Wednesday. Big clash against Juventus. Two key players out for Juventus. They've had a really I'm not doing us any justice because if we lose, it's going to be a humble pie in the next episode. But two massive players out for them. They haven't had the best start in Serie A either. So it's just, is this a game where we really should be beating Juventus at the time that we're playing them based off form at the moment?
Yes, we should. I mean, it sounds a bit crazy saying that because Juventus are still a very, very good team, regardless of form. If you look back at their history, even their manager, Allegri, I think they're still a fantastic team, and it's an away trip to Italy. So that, almost, makes them, I don't want to say favourites, but gives them a bit more of an opportunity to maybe get a result. I do think if we want to win this game, the one player that we need to kind of take out of the game, and by take out, I mean, it's maybe just man mark or make sure he just doesn't play his football, is Chiesa. He's an absolutely fantastic player. I know that we even linked to him. He's on a 2-year loan from Fiorentina and from Juventus to Juventus with an obligation to buy. And I do think, maybe if there's somehow Chelsea intervene, he's the type of player that would be brilliant for us. But at the same time, I think we should be winning. It is probably the hardest game of the group stage away to Juventus. After that, it's Malmo and Zenit. So it's almost a question of we should be winning, but at the same time, we should not be letting Juventus win. So, if we don't want to be getting Juventus picking up extra points on us in this type of game. So I'll take a draw in the game, but at the same time, depending on the game, how the game plans out, I think, we've got every reason to be winning it based on form, regardless of Saturday. I think Juventus still conceded 2 to, I think it was La Spezia, who are, a lower league team. So I think we should be winning, but at the same time, as I said, it's a matter of not losing as well.
Yeah, I don't think we've got the best record against Juve as well. I'm sure, just looking here now, I think 2009 we drew 2-2, 2012 we drew 2-2, and they beat in 2012 in the November in the return fixture as well. So
Di Matteo's last game as well, I think that was.
Yeah, so that was 3-0. So we haven't got the best record against Juve, but I do agree with you as well. I think times have changed. They've moved on from obviously those fixtures. For me personally, I think it's a game that I necessarily wouldn't rest a lot of the players that did play on the weekend. I think this is a game. It's a must-win game. This is our biggest game out of the 3 that we're going to be playing. 3 teams that we're going to be playing. So for me personally, I'd go with my strongest squad. I wouldn't rest. Potentially put Callum Hudson-Odoi at right wing back. I think that's obviously Thiago Silva, perfect game for him to start. I think he'd be crucial and key. Mendy in goal. I'd keep Alonso left wing back as well. The only thing I think I would switch up is obviously that midfield. I don't know if he's going to go for the 2 up top again, but if he does, I think you've got to have someone in that midfield that's creative, especially against Juventus, because I feel like it's a game that it will be decided in midfield. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but I think that's where, the ball's going to be won. It's going to be, the main focus is going to be around that midfield for me. And I think we've got to have someone in there. A Kante, yes. Maybe a Kovacic, yes. But we've got to have someone in there that can just work the ball to our strikers. And if it is Werner or Havertz or, Lukaku up front, they need to get some service. And that was one of the things they were starved of against Man City. So for me, having a Loftus-Cheek or even like you mentioned, maybe putting Havertz in that role for a bit as well. I think that's got to be crucial. And I do think we need 3 points as well.
100%. The game also maybe on Saturday, I didn't know if when Havertz came on and Loftus-Cheek, it almost looked a bit better. So if we get Havertz starting or coming on earlier, I don't think it might be the right game for Timo. I think he played the 490 on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So I think should we play like with a front 3 of maybe a Mount with Havertz and Lukaku? I'd be happy with that. Or even if Mount's not fit, play Loftus-Cheek, but not in that 2 midfielders, maybe play him higher up the pitch. Then I'd be happy with that as well. But yeah, I think we've got every reason to be trying to get the 3 points. And You mentioned the two players on the screen now that are injured for Juventus, Dybala and Morata. I know Morata's, kind of hit and miss at times, but I'm actually very, very glad that he's injured because I feel like, former player coming to play against Chelsea again, it would just haunt us 100% if if he was on form, and he's still a decent player on the day. So, and Dybala, I know he's a bit injury prone as well, but still a very decent player. So if those two injured, I think the one to watch is definitely Chiesa.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Morata, we talk about Morata, who was actually not that bad for us. I think a lot of people forget how good he technically was, and how when we didn't have a number 9, how much we actually missed having a number 9. We would have probably snapped, the hands off of Morata to come back to Chelsea. So I think he's a very good player. He's a very good striker. He had a very decent Euros, if I remember correctly, as well. So I think him being out of action and Dybala as well, I think they're two key players that we have to capitalise on the fact they're not playing as well. Don't forget, we'll have to play them again, in the home leg. So again, we've got to take these 3 points here, make the use of the fact that they haven't got their strongest squad, just like we haven't. If Mason Mount isn't fit, which is very unlikely that he's going to play, same with Reece James, we've still got absentees as well. So I think it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it, more so than Man City. I think you mentioned it just before we came on around, this is a brilliant game to bounce back from, and I couldn't agree more. I think this is the sort of game that we should be. Yeah, we've just got to put Man City behind us now, focus on the Champions League, and then look forward to Southampton. But I think looking at this game when the draw was made, this is the one that sticks out. You look at it and you just say, obviously Malmo, no disrespect to them, we should be beating Malmo, with ease, comfortably as well, and Zenit as well. I think they did give us a game to an extent, but I think again we should be beating them as well. So I look at this Juventus team, and we've got to be ready for whatever comes our way on Wednesday.
Definitely a perfect game to bounce back from, and come I think the second leg, the reverse fixture, end of November, beginning of December. I'm not too sure on the exact date, but with players coming back from injury, Morata and Dybala will probably be fit for that one. I'm sure they will be fit actually. So it'll be really important to almost capitalise on these absentees now. And we're missing players too. So we don't have Reece James. We might not have Mount. We still don't have Pulisic by the looks of it. So it's going to be an even game, but I think we will win it. So let me throw out my prediction now. I'm going to stick with the same scoreline I said for Saturday, but I'm still going to be confident when I say this. I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. I think Juventus will get a goal. I think maybe there might be a bit of nerves from the Chelsea back line after the City game. But I think if we start with, a bit more offense in midfield and, this front three, like I said, Havertz, Lukaku and Mount, then I think we will win 2-1.
It's a tough one. I've been really awful with the predictions the last couple of games, but although I think I got a 3-0. I think I got 3-0 Spurs.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for 2-0 Chelsea.
Okay. I think Lukaku's got a good record against Juventus in Serie A as well, so that might help us.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0. I think it'd be close. I think it'd be a very close game. I don't think it's going to be a game that will dominate. I think it'd be a game that we're going to have to work for that 2-0, which we've had to do. Like I said before, in the Premier League against Liverpool, obviously we got the point, but in terms of Spurs, Zenit as well, we had to work for these games. We haven't just pushed teams aside and played amazing football. So I think it's going to be a difficult game, but I think 2-0.
Yeah, I think we might need a bit of luck on our side as well. I'm looking back at some of those previous fixtures. You said Zenit, even the Liverpool one, Mendy was fantastic, but there was moments where, almost one-on-ones and the players messing them up. So I think if you want to get the 3 points on Wednesday, we're going to need a bit of luck on our side again, and hopefully we'll still have it. But I'm going to stick with 2-1.
It's going to be an interesting game, and obviously, I think what worries me as well, why I hate playing on Wednesdays as well. We'll have our game on the Saturday, but it's at 3:00, I think, isn't it, against Southampton? So I love playing on the Tuesday. It just gives you that extra day just to sort of get everyone back together, and that extra training session potentially, or just we're playing away, so obviously you've got to factor in traveling as well. So it's just little things like that. And watching Southampton as well, they played some good football at the weekend as well. So that's a game that I'm looking forward to. But again, it all depends on. I think another key thing that we haven't really mentioned and kind of have is we can't really afford any more injuries as well. It's something
Yeah.
that is kind of slowly creeping up a bit. Obviously, Pulisic has been injured for some time now, but you look at Hakim Ziyech has already been sort of injured at some point, although he was out for less than we thought he was. Mason Mount's out and Reece James is out. Mendy's missed a game now as well. So it's just, we don't want to start getting a few injuries at this crucial time when we've got some games where we kind of think we can get through them, over the Premier League and the games that we've got coming up. But if we keep losing these players and, we need to try and keep the squad fresh, maybe rotating is the answer. I don't know, but we've got to keep them fresh, I think, and hope that we can get through October and get as many points as we can.
I mean, we've been quite lucky that the injuries have been relatively short ones. They've only missed maybe one fixture at times. I'm thinking of Mendy's missed two, but that's why you're grateful we've got this amazing depth in the squad this season. A season or two ago, I'm thinking under Lampard's first season, there was one game, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Bayern Munich in the Champions League where we had suspensions, injuries, and you had to play a completely different lineup to what we usually play. So I think we're really lucky this year that we've got that depth. Players like Chalobah, he wouldn't have been there a few seasons ago, who can slot in when we want to rest a Thiago Silva and Azpilicueta, or even one of a Christensen and a Rudiger, who are getting a lot of game time this season.
Yeah.
And we did see a Chalobah in the Premier League fixture against Villa. He started that game, kept a clean sheet. Same with the Crystal Palace one, the first game of the season, started it, kept a clean sheet. So he's more than capable of playing, football at the top level. So I think we'll be seeing more of him as well as time goes by and as the fixtures get congested.
Yeah, and it's a game that I'd love to see Billy Gilmour playing. It's a game, I think we might have missed a trick not keeping him at the club this season. I think I've watched a few of his games at Norwich, and he's a talent. Debate with someone over the weekend about him. They're not too keen on him. They think he's overrated. But I think when you just watch him as a player, we've watched him a lot, but he's just a player that would fit into that Chelsea team right now. Obviously, we haven't mentioned Saul Niguez in this episode, but again, an option maybe for tomorrow, Wednesday's game as well. Maybe bring him into that kind of fixture as well. But yeah, Billy Gilmour for me, I think. Maybe, I don't know if it's an option, but maybe bring him back in January if it's possible. Maybe I don't think we will, but it's an option.
Yeah, I mean, Saul Niguez, bags of Champions League experience, with Atletico Madrid, so he's a player that, would relish a game like this. And I have to agree with you about Billy Gilmour. He's a fantastic player. When he plays, for Chelsea, you forget how young he is because he looks so mature on the ball.
Yeah.
And as much as I think, he needed that loan to get game time, I'm starting to think now and have second doubts whether Norwich was the right club for him because they're struggling. They're really, really struggling. And the last thing I'd want is almost this loan to be identical to Ampadu and Loftus-Cheek's last season when they were playing at Sheffield and Fulham. And despite playing decent football, they were, kind of surrounded by mess. Exactly. And, at the end of the day, what was highlighted was the final score, which was often defeats. Yeah. And then at the end of the season, it was relegation. And that's what they were remembered for at the time at those clubs. So I think, looking back now at this Billy Gilmour Norwich move, if they continue to struggle, and not get wins, then, what will happen next season? Will we take him back? Will we think, no, he was relegated with Norwich, he's not good enough, let's send him out on another loan? So I'm kind of really hoping somehow either Norwich start performing and Gilmour, helps them or leads them to safety, or Chelsea, as you said, maybe do we recall him in January, or do we consider his future at Chelsea, come the summer? So that's something to look out for as well.
It's going to be interesting. I hope we keep him because, like I said, he's a talent. He's a very good talent. I just think at the moment there's, 4-5 players ahead of him who are, potential starters ahead of him. But he could easily break into that team. If Ruben Loftus-Cheek is doing it, there's nothing to say Billy Gilmour can't do the same. And for me, he's a player that, very similar to Mason Mount. Who went on it's very different because obviously he was with Derby and they almost got promoted, I think, that season. But in terms of the fact that they're both, for me, that at that level where they can be first team Chelsea players, and Mason Mount is now, he's established. So Billy Gilmour can do exactly the same. But just before we wrap up, there's obviously been a few further conversations. I think we touched on it a few episodes ago around the contract renewals, Christensen, Rudiger, Aspie, and I'm forgetting someone. We always do this.
Rudiger, Aspie,
is it Silva?
I think we mentioned Silva. We mentioned Silva's name, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the key one after the City game for me, Christensen, well, all three of them, Christensen, Aspilicueta, and Rudiger. If the money's right, I think if the money's right, keep him.
£400,000 I'm hearing now that other
Yeah,
clubs are willing to offer him, which is crazy money,
yeah, yeah.
for
If
a
the
centre
money's
back.
right, we keep him.
Yeah,
But if it's someone's offering him 400,000, let him go. Get Kunde in for 180,000 a week, who we know is a very good defender as well. We've got Chaloba there as well, like you mentioned. So we've got options, but for £400,000 a week, he's a good defender, but he's not that good of a defender, unfortunately.
yeah. Maybe do some scouting on Wednesday for Delete as well from Juventus,
Yeah,
because
well, that's an option. It's been rumored.
his name's been linked to Chelsea a few times in the last couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But it's going to be interesting. We've got a big game Wednesday, Juventus. Like I mentioned, we haven't got the best record against them, but times have changed. We've got the players in now that hopefully can do that and bounce back from the City defeat as well. The rude awakening. But if you guys want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, if you're listening on Apple Music or Spotify and you're not able to go on YouTube, then you can follow us on Twitter at From the Shed End. That's all one word. And it's on Instagram at From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words. And also on YouTube, if you just search From the Shed End, you should be able to find us on there. So subscribe, like, and comment on all the discussions that we've had on today's episode as well. But this has been episode 26 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, Tito, and Theo. As always, thanks for joining me, Theo. Until next time, we will be back to hopefully cheer on Chelsea after a brilliant 2-0 or 2-1, I think you said, 2-1 victory against Juventus.